We covered last week the small margin of error there was moving forward in the races between Lewis Hamilton of Mercedes and Max Verstappen of Red Bull, and things just got even crazier at the Italian Grand Prix. We have both of their reactions to what happened, and more F1 news coming right up, so stay tuned. A dramatic ending. The race for the top spot between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen has not lacked in the way of excitement these last few weeks, with only a handful of points separating the current leader Max and defending champion Lewis. Everything seemed to come to a head at the Italian Grand Prix, and it doesn't seem like the two racers will be friends judging from how everyone reacted. Max and Lewis were jockeying for position halfway through the race, when both collided in a way that was both shocking and dangerous, especially for Lewis Hamilton. Things looked so bad, in fact, that Mercedes team principal, who has not been shy about sharing his opinion in the past, stated that it was mostly the other driver's fault, and that the stewards would decide whose fault the crash was. So, who was at fault? Toto Wolff, the Mercedes team principal, may have thought that Max made a tactical foul, but what does that mean? And what did the stewards have to say about all of this? What Wolff seems to be insinuating here is that Verstappen and his team collided with Max in an effort to knock themselves both out of the race, knowing that Mercedes drivers would win otherwise, or at least that is what Mercedes is saying about the whole thing. The stewards did issue a punishment, a 3-place grid drop for the start of the next race, the Russian GP, as they believed that the Red Bull driver was predominantly at fault for the collision. The crash did look scary, with Verstappen's car on top of Hamilton, but it's lucky that everyone was able to emerge okay, and all signs point towards more gamesmanship moving forward. Hamilton just hopes that it is clean though. Lewis Hamilton speaks out about the crash. Lewis started out by voicing his support for the stewards' decision, as well as potentially a plea to stop any further tactical fouls moving forward. Lewis wants strict rules put into place moving forward, especially to stop drivers from hurling themselves at other drivers in order to maintain their spot on the leaderboard. While the jury is still out on Max and his intentions, it seems clear that there's not a ton of trust, at least on Lewis's end, after all of this. I hope that the rest of this title race that promises to go down to the wire will not be ruined by crashes and mishaps, as both of these drivers have brought tons of attention to the sport. Hamilton's halo. Funnily enough, this isn't all about Lewis Hamilton thanking the heavens for emerging unscathed from the crash, although he might want to do that as well. Now, he was talking about the halo, a protective part of the car that is located just above Hamilton's head. The crash lifted up the right tire of Max's car onto the halo of Hamilton's Mercedes, and was able to protect him from some serious damage. Lewis seemed pretty somber when talking about the whole ordeal, demonstrating clearly how close he felt to the whole situation being a lot more serious than it ended up. Lewis Hamilton has always been very outspoken about the halo and its importance, and has been an advocate for it since long before it became a mandated part of the machine. Lewis stated that he didn't think he had ever been hit in the head as hard as he was today, and that he felt like someone was watching over him. While things seem pretty cut and dry about what happened in Hamilton's corner, there are two sides to every story, and Max Verstappen took a chance to shed some light on what he felt happened as well. Verstappen's perspective. Max left today having maintained his lead, which now stands at 5 points after a good performance at the sprint the day earlier, in which he placed second. Max was not quiet about what he thought had happened, and although Lewis seemed shocked at how close to tragic things almost were, Max didn't give an inch. Verstappen believes that Lewis squeezed him on the turn, and that the crash happened because he wasn't given proper room, not because of any driving accident on his own behalf. Max said that he went out there prepared to race hard, but fair, and doesn't think that any reports that he crashed in order to ruin Lewis's day are bogus. Max would go on to double down, stating that he doesn't fully agree with the penalty as it was a racing incident. While hard to know what really went on from a fan's point of view, it's clear that neither side will be backing down, as Max would put a bow on how he feels by saying that while it was unfortunate what happened, that they are both professionals, and will start to move on, the exact opposite of what Lewis and his camp want to happen. Is this payback? While this incident has been scary for onlookers, this rivalry seems destined to continue, amping up as things continue on. This is the second incident of this type within the last 2 months, as Lewis Hamilton was given a 10-second penalty for a maneuver he pulled on Max, which was called a desperate attempt to slow the Red Bull driver down. The move ended up landing Max in the hospital, leading some to wonder if this is retaliation for the last incident. Whoever side you are on, though, the dangers of animosity on the racing track carry much more serious consequences than those found on the court or field, and it seems about time to start looking forward to potential rule changes that could help throw some water on this fiery rivalry. What could happen moving forward? A lot of things happened in the moments after the crash, but some might help us get to the bottom of what is going on here. Max, frustrated and frazzled, could be heard shouting, "That's what happens when you don't give space," to his team over the radio, leading many to believe this crash was caused primarily by frustration and not by strategy. The frustration carried over, as Lewis Hamilton miraculously was able to leave the car under his own power, only to find that Max had not even come to check on him to make sure that he was okay, a move that irked the defending champion. Lewis said that he was surprised to see Max just walk on by him, and that the traditional custom is that drivers check on each other as they all understand how scary and dangerous these things can be. It seems like things are far from settled, and now both drivers have put the other in serious danger. We'll see how things turn out as both drivers look primed to make a final push towards the championship gold. But who won? As Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton both knocked each other out of the race, the clear frontrunners and betting favorites were unavailable to win, opening the door for McLaren to snatch their first victory in almost a decade. Driver Ricciardo celebrated his big win by drinking champagne directly out of his shoe, and even got his teammate to take a drink as well. This has become something of an Australian tradition for competitors across all sports, and as weird as it is, it does a great job at getting fans excited. The McLaren driver finished just 4.9 seconds ahead of Mercedes driver Valtteri Bottas, who had an amazing run as of late after an absolutely awful start. It will be interesting to see how everyone not named Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton fare as these drivers look to catch up and show their resolve underneath the two clear favorites. Power rankings shift following crazy week. Power rankings are a great way to tell how the experts are feeling following the week's proceedings, and looking at the official Formula One power rankings, you can see some changes taking place, and some familiar faces starting to take control. Crazily enough, Max and Lewis both dropped significantly, with Verstappen taking the 7th spot and Max dropping all the way down to 9. Max got the slight edge over Lewis Hamilton by having a better week before that crash, but still not enough to salvage a crummy end to a decent week. Headlining the top 3 of the rankings is Bottas, Norris, and at number 1, Ricciardo, who's likely still celebrating a huge day for himself. The real story, however, is Bottas, who we said earlier is having a great run as of late. This is following his release from Mercedes, something that clearly lit a fire underneath him to perform better and has worked wonders for the driver. The whole thing also brings up the question of why this has been happening with Mercedes drivers. They look so good, then get signed and start to struggle, only to fare better following their release. It very well could be a coincidence, but is still something worth thinking about moving forward, especially as a new driver yet again is ready to take Bottas' spot. And with that, it wraps up the video. Thanks for watching.